And one thing that I try to do in all my garden beds is I don't want to disturb the soil more than I have to. Um, I don't when I pull a plant out, I don't actually pull it out. I just cut it off and leave that root structure in there because around um, the small fibers, hair fibers on roots of a plant, um, beneficial bacteria will actually congregate around that, and that's what helps feed the plants. So if you pull out that root structure, you've disturbed the structure so much, all that stuff is now out, and you're adding too much oxygen into the environment, and all the worm tunnels that have gone through there, you've just destroyed all that structure. And it actually, I've read, like I said, I don't have a degree, but it causes more harm than good actually tilling soil and turning it over. That's why I chop them off and I'll just throw the plant on there and cover it up with more compost and mulch. And throughout, some plants will stop being productive and you still have more growing season. My compost pile was only level to start with because once one area those plants had served the purpose, I would cut them and then add more green and brown materials right on top of that. So one side would be higher than the other, and you just use the space you have available because there's not large yards here. And like my acre that I had in North Carolina, I could have planted enough food to fill a food pantry, but and it wouldn't have been a problem. But here you have such limited space and limited soil, you have to really plan your gardening. So if you cut a head of lettuce 3 or 4 times, it starts to be bitter after that, after it regrows. Mm-hmm. So after that, I would cut it off even with the ground and just pile more stuff on it. That would kill that plant, and then those roots would start to decompose. And I've learned that worms are your absolute best friend in lasagna garden. If I had thought about it, I would have ordered red worms and had them put in and sprinkle them across the garden because the earthworms you have here, they don't eat near as fast as red wiggler worms. And you can buy 5 pounds of worms for $10 on Amazon. So they may not survive the winter, but in the summertime they would do plenty of work for you. Because another reason I don't disturb the soil is because when you lay that new layer of compost and mulch over top of it, the worms will drag everything. The worms and the leaching from when you water it, the nutrients leaching in the soil, it'll drag everything down to the roots. So there's really not much need, and I didn't see any need for it to actually dig holes to put new plants. The way I started my transplants with the eggshells, they already had a little pot that was fertilizer. So when I planted one, I would just move some of the mulch out of the way and crush the eggshell, set it in there, and then water it in real well. Move the mulch back around the plant and water it in, and I had no problems with that.
Did you leave the crushed eggshell in the?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Eggshells are great.
Mm-hmm.
I would just I would water all my transplants before I did it, crush the eggshell, and then water it again to kind of pull those root fibers down into the small crevices. I did learn that if you don't crush the eggshell, the roots won't
expand.
They'll come out the bottom a little bit, but they won't break the shell for some reason. So I always crack the shells. As far as most of my tomatoes, I probably saved 25 pounds of tomatoes last year out of that bed. I lost much more than that due to slugs. I have never had such a problem with slugs as I had here. I had a very healthy worm colony in my bed until I got desperate with the slugs and put that organic iron ferrite or
ferrous sulfate. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. That kills everything in the soil. And it didn't kill any slugs, so I just killed all my earthworms. And it took months to see them again, so they were gone for a long time. That set me back a little bit. With the tomatoes, I know I'm talking about soil, but pollination was a huge issue. I had to pollinate all my own tomatoes because there was just no bees to do it. Had a few bees, but not anything like I'm used to. So I took a makeup brush and pollinated all my tomatoes, and my Roma tomatoes didn't do hardly anything, so I cross-pollinated them. I grew glacier tomatoes last year and ended up with some paste tomatoes doing it that way. I just got lucky and they were able to cross-pollinate.
Did you have a rhododendron bush anywhere near?
No, ma'am.
That is what attracts bees. That's what we found. My mom has a rhododendron bush that is literally like 8 feet wide, 12 feet tall, and it's covered all the time with bees. And we have found that has really helped because she had to do the same thing that you did the first couple of years. We did tomatoes, we go in with a brush, but rhododendrons really attract the bees, and so we found that really had helped.
I couldn't get a bee to come to my stuff for nothing.
All you have to do is just bang the plant.
Yes, ma'am. I had originally did that, but those glacier tomatoes would set 100 blossoms a cluster, and 5 tomatoes would do it. And I was smacking those tomato plants trying to get them to cross pollinate. And I had plenty of breeze flowing through there. I just until I started using the brush, I couldn't get them to do it. Maybe it was likely the tomato, the type of tomato that I had. Because in the past, just hitting the bushes has worked pretty well, but I had no luck. I figured it was high humidity and the pollen wasn't.
Oh, that's what. Yeah, maybe it was just too humid or something
Yes,
in your
ma'am.
hoop house.
That could have very well been it. With the tomatoes, though, I would cut them off green and then hang them in the pantry on the cluster, and I did pretty well with that. Some of them would start to dehydrate before they would turn red, and I would just toss them on the dehydrator, use them as spaghetti or something like that. So, with building soil, this lasagna method, it worked really well here. There was no way I could afford to fill that 12 by 3 foot bed with soil here. But if you really wanted to be serious about building soil, you need some form of livestock for it. And my preferred is rabbits because they're the cheapest animal to feed, and I started rabbits in North Carolina, and I started with a male and 2 females, and I had over 100 pounds of rabbit meat in my deep freezer in about a year and a half. They can do much more than that, but I was on the schedule I had them on. It wasn't that much. I didn't need that much, and their manure is a cold manure, so there's no need to compost it. It can go straight from the rabbit to the garden, and that's really nice here because with the rain and the bears and everything else, compost seems difficult. I didn't have much trouble with bear here because I started using just the lettuce greens towards the top of the pile because I didn't want bears to smell really well. So
Bears like bunnies, though.
yes, ma'am. I'm trying to talk Richard Harney into getting some. But if you were going to do rabbits here, you would most definitely have to do them indoors in a garage or something like that, which they actually do very well in. There's not hardly any smell associated with them at all. And if not, you need electric fencing for minks and for bear.
Martin Wolf,
I was just thinking
everybody else.
ermine.
Eagles.
One hot strand of electric wire will deter plenty. I have a picture on here. If I can figure out how to open it. Ms. Johnson, can you show me how you did that again?
Sure. Are we doing the rabbits?
Back to the
Go back to that one.
pictures.
Okay.
My dad had 2 rabbits on the back porch for years. They got huge.
Okay, so we're opening.
I don't remember when we had those rabbits peeking.
This
Come over
is
to my
what's
house.
going on there.
Thank you, rabbit.
That was whenever I tried to open the document.
I had no
But
idea
this
I was
is just
giving
in a
away
way.
gold.
Yeah, let me move that for
My
a
mom's
second.
next door neighbor has a rabbit
I
hutch,
wanna
and he
open
actually brings
your-
us over 5-gallon buckets.
It's not.
And we make-
maybe not
my
showing
Lloyd calls it
now.
poop tea.
Yeah.
We
Because
mix
it's
it with
full.
water
Oh,
and
here we go.
through the whole garden.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
amazing
Go
fertilizer.
with this. Soil
He's always
building.
telling us,
Rabbits.
you know anybody else that needs some?
So
We're always
And
like,
then I go, okay, and then I close. I'm very sorry.
That's all
Oh my goodness.
So with
Let me do it again.
for sourcing the materials for these lasagna gardens, I know there's a few horses on the island, and with having horses, they have to keep a nice dry bedding, so they're going to be going through a lot of straw, and the manure, I'm sure that they run out of space for it by now. So if you could find somebody with horses, I know there's a lady on the island with goats, or even other people with chickens.
But isn't
Taking
chicken
care of their
coop
waste.
considered hot